Number 7. Take a moment to read the answer choices. When you are finished reading the answer choices, press the play button. You may know about explorers like Christopher Columbus, but did you know that they were following in the tradition of Silk Road explorers from centuries before? In the 14th and 15th centuries, European traders followed a route called the Silk Road that traveled across the continent of Asia to China and India, where they would trade for exotic spices and fine silks and bring them back to Europe to sell for a profit. It was a dangerous trip. Traders traveled through a desert where weather conditions were extreme, and there were also thieves who tried to steal from them. The route became well traveled as the years passed, and towns even began to develop along the way. Silk Road trade came to an end in the year 1453. After years of warring, the Turkish Empire conquered the city of Constantinople, and after that, the Turks would no longer allow European traders to travel on the Silk Road. And for that reason, European countries sent explorers across the oceans to see if they could find an ocean route to the Far East. What caused Europeans to stop traveling east to China and India? Number 8. Take a moment to read the answer choices. When you are finished reading the answer choices, press the play button. After you listen to the passage, I will ask you to compare Magellan and Cabral, two Portuguese explorers. In 1500, the King of Portugal appointed Pedro Cabral, a Portuguese nobleman, to lead a fleet of 13 ships on the long journey around Africa and through the Indian Ocean. Now, historians have not found records of any military or sailing experience that Cabral may have had. Instead, some believe Cabral's noble status, his loyalty to the king, and rivalry among other noble families caused the king to promote him to commander. On his way to India, he landed in present-day Brazil. Some historians believe he was the first European to travel there. Another Portuguese explorer, Ferdinand Magellan, began sailing in 1505 at the age of 25. He went on several trips to the Indies and moved up the ranks until he was promoted to captain. He was revered for being so courageous on these expeditions, but he eventually fell out of favor with the Portuguese king. For his most famous expedition, which began in 1519, Magellan left Portugal and obtained the support of the Spanish crown. The Spanish king appointed Magellan commander of a fleet of 5 ships that traveled west around the southern tip of South America to get to Asia, and eventually circled the globe. How did Magellan's background compare to Cabral's? Number 9. Take a moment to read the answer choices. When you are finished reading the answer choices, press the play button. In 1609, Henry Hudson was commissioned by the Dutch East India Company to search for a northern route to the Far East. The company ordered him to sail east through the Arctic Ocean, along the northern coast of Russia, and from there into the Pacific. As agreed, he began his journey by sailing northeast from Amsterdam and along the coast of Norway. But the conditions soon became so cold and icy that he couldn't go any further. Hudson had to do something, so he turned the ship around, thinking that maybe he could find a passage to the Far East by heading westward. This decision violated his agreement with the East India Company, and his crew considered forcing him to step down as captain, or even throwing him off the ship. Before they could rebel, though, Hudson showed them a letter and map from John Smith, a fellow explorer who had settled in North America a few years before, in what is now the state of Virginia. In the letter, Smith described a water passage that led through the northern part of North America to the Pacific Ocean, opening the gates to the Far East. Although it was later discovered that this route doesn't exist, Smith's story was enticing and restored the crew's faith in their captain. Why did Henry Hudson tell his crew about John Smith? Part D. Sea Story. The big picture shows a sailor named Rodrigo. Listen to the story about Rodrigo. Number 10. Take a moment to look at the answer choices. When you are ready, press the play button. One day, Rodrigo's mighty ship sailed into port. Wandering through the local market, the lonely sailor spotted a small cat. The cat was playing near a vendor who was selling cooking pots. "The cat's for sale too," said the vendor. "He'd be a good one to keep you and your mates entertained." Rodrigo bought the cat and took it back to his vessel. Where did Rodrigo bring the cat? Number 11. Take a moment to read the answer choices. When you are finished reading the answer choices, press the play button. After you listen to the passage, I will ask you to identify an exaggeration. To exaggerate means to describe something as being bigger or more important than it really is. Rodrigo struggled to keep the kitten hidden inside his jacket so that the other sailors wouldn't see it. As he soon found out, though, the other sailors had their own problems. Bruno and Ali, two of the biggest sailors on board the ship, had nearly come to blows arguing over who was the more skillful sailor. "I've sailed around the world," said Ali. "I've been a sailor since I was born," Bruno replied. "I can tie any kind of knot," claimed Ali. "Well, I can row a boat faster than you," boasted Bruno. Which of the sailors' four claims